have the idea, but never let anybody tell you you're poor. Because when we agree, you say you are poor already, you know. Yesterday I learned something very important from our sister judge. That was telling us, you know, yes, about white supremacist ideas that, you know, we were fed on for the last for centuries. And I was just thinking, I said, yes, no, look at this. So I tell my brother and sister that if a little young man born in the mountain over there, who has difficulty even going to school, who had to wake up every morning, going walking miles to get some water. I know we used to call it clean water, but trust me, today I don't think if I drink that water today I'll be able to stand. But walking miles, you know, sometimes going to sell something in the morning from like 5 to 6, and then going to school at 8, things like that. If someone like that could get where I am today, that means there's no excuse. Okay? We have to know that the only thing limiting us is those white supremacist ideas that have been, you know, people have been bombarding us and our ancestors and things like that, and we accepted that the whites, you know, lead the way and they know better than us. So in 2000, I published a small book of poem called What a Century. You know, everybody was talking about Y2K and all these things. And I published a book of poems because poetry is my way to, you know, when you have this anger, you see things you cannot change, you know, instead of getting angry and, you know, using the F or whatever, you know, I take a piece of paper and the book and then start writing. So I published in that book of poems, I published a poem called Diaspora that, you know, I would like to read to you in a minute. And the book I think could be found also in Amazon. So the title is Diaspora, and this is how I read it. Can you tell me what happened to Greece after Aristotle? What happened to Spain after Christopher Columbus? What happened to Rome, where all roads used to lead? Why is Turkey now begging in a seat in Europe after ruling the Ottoman Empire for centuries? If you have no answer, then listen. I don't know either, but let me tell you about my hope. My hope about our motherland, Africa. I'll learn about the time Caesar, Pythagoras, and others went to Egypt. If you stop begging, just like the professor was saying, yeah, if you stop begging, crying, and humiliating ourselves, we could build a better Africa. We could restore Africa's dignity. You call me utopian? Yes, I'm happy utopian. Theodore Herzl was utopian, though Israel is the reality today. Martin Luther King Jr. was a utopian, though his grandchildren are now sitting at a table with descendants of slave owners. Gandhi was a utopian, though an untouchable is president in India today. Mandela was utopian. Thank God he lived long enough to witness the birth of a free and democratic South Africa. I'm not as great as they were, but what I'm learning from them is that we should believe in our destiny. That's the reason why I strongly believe in a different Africa, a great Africa. Let's not stop lamenting and work towards Africa's rehabilitation. We've suffered from slavery as Jews suffered from Nazism. Today, Israel is awake and proud. Why? Because its children kept the flame for centuries. They never stopped believing they'll make it one day. Let's learn from them and prepare Africa. The Africa I've been dreaming about for the next generation. Thank you. So I published that. I can see the context a little bit different because at that time there was an untouchable president in India. You know, so something that was unthinkable. So that's coming full circle, and the time we spent last night about Black Panther, you know, was just for me a moment coming a full circle. So I was really, really happy yesterday to see that Apostle Brown was saying that yes, there will be pre and post Black Panther, and we're all here to welcome them. So, in a nutshell, yes, where are we right now, and where do we plan to be? Where are we going? Where will we be 2024 and beyond as people? So, as you learned from my bio, the history of the world goes up and down. There used to be a time where, of course, Egypt was the center of the world, after then everybody was talking about Rome and then Turkey and things like that. So in the modern era, the things I've learned is that the youth are those who actually make the change. Can anybody in this room know about Hector Peterson? If you know about Hector Peterson, raise your hand. Okay. So, the Soweto Revolution. Do you know about the Soweto Revolution? Yes. Young men, many of them against the wish of their parents, went out to protest, and that was the beginning of the end of apartheid. Apartheid ended later on, but you can trace it back to that very moment where young people went out there, and Hector was, you have seen all this iconic picture where the young man that was being carried out like this and people crying. He's the one that actually was one of the first to fall in the fight against apartheid. Charles Abere. Anybody from Alabama can tell me about Charles? Birmingham, the children of Birmingham. So, time and time again we see children, not because they are listening to their parents, but because they have other way of thinking, went out and did a sacrifice for a change. So I think in order for us to get anywhere, the first thing we need to do is to make sure we get young children, not to be the children, the leaders of tomorrow, but to be the leaders of today. That's the first prescription I would like to suggest. We engage them, talk to them, and let them lead. Stand on the side and get them lead, and so that we provide them with the wisdom that they will need from time to time. Because yes, we are African, we know that our ancestors are speaking to us, we know that without these parents that have seen it, done it, we cannot get there. But we need, I think it would be good for us to pull out and let the young people lead the march. I was president at Frederick County NAACP for over 11 years. And the one thing that I learned from the victory of the civil rights movement is that, as you can see, the NAACP, who is credited with many other organizations to be one of the major organizations that helped free Africans, was founded in 1908. Yes, one of the major decisions, the Civil Rights Acts, came in 1964. There will be other, and then in the court, we also have one of the landmark cases, Brown versus Board of Education. I know, how many of you have heard about Brown versus Board of Education? Okay. So, a movement was founded in 1908. It took almost more than 50 years to start seeing some tangible and decisive results. So, how did that happen? It happened because, yes, we have people that knew how to protest, to picket, to go on the street when it's needed. But that alone cannot resolve the problem. They have a brilliant mind. As they were picketing on the floor, we have people that were also addressing the court system, studying Jim Crow. Can you imagine? Just think for a moment. We are in the United States, where almost the institution believe in racism. But when you use the court system in that country to end the discrimination, think about it. So how did that happen? Because those who founded the organization, they understood that, yes, in order to have tangible results, we have the legal component has to be an integral part of that. So we had people that were studying the legal system. How could we make some progress on that end? The third leg, because I need to cut this short, we have other opportunities. The third leg that's crucial is the legislative policy, the legislative aspect. With that, how many of us here have been to their city council to advocate, or to their regional institution to advocate for something they believe, either a law to be withdrawn or a law to be implemented? Raise your hand. It's good. But if we are not there when decisions are made, and we just wait for things to happen to complain, how many of us have tried to help our leaders and hold their feet to the fire instead of just complaining? So we need, anytime before election, we don't just do that right that many sacrifice for us to get. We don't just wait on election to go that down. These people running for election, we need to look at them in the eyes What are you going to do for us? And when they're elected, we go and do the same thing. So when I was in Cameroon a number of years ago, I started acting with UNESCO. I was a president of my club when I was in high school. So I went back there in one of the meetings, and the young people that saw me from a humble family would come and say, how is that possible? We saw you having dinner with one of the most powerful person in the world, President Obama. How is that possible? We know you didn't have anybody, we have people that were rich and that. I said, things like that happen because they are pressure. When I had the first opportunity to meet with President Barack Obama, one thing I learned from him was that even when he got to power, there are things you wanted to do but he couldn't. So we that helped elected him, that time we were crashing with him. And when I met with him, I told him, I thought he was going to be angry. No, say, that's what I want. So sometimes our elected officials even want to give us what we want. But if we just elect them and leave them there, the system is going to drive them somewhere. So we need to learn how to be there, learn how the legislative process works in any other country, and then be a part of that. If we don't do that, we are going to be here 100 years again and complain. So 3 things, just to summarize. The first, yes, we need to learn how to pick it. When I was president of the NAACP, I was mentored by a man named Lord Nichols. He was almost 100 years old when he passed. When one day I was having an interview with him, and then he told the newspaper, I'm fighting the same fight you fought 70 years ago. My heart sank. We don't want to be there 7 years ago and fighting the same fight. What was the point of living? So we need to find, so the first thing, yes, we can pick it. Second thing, let's understand the legal system very well. We cannot do anything in any country, the legal system is very important. And third, we need to have our people, at least one people per person per organization, going to those city council, going to the Congress, going to regional legislature, and making sure that we know what they are up to. And when they fail, we can use the social media to shame them. It works. We've seen that work in other places. So, on that, I want to thank you for the opportunity again and say, yes, we are here. This lovely country is my first time coming here, but I've been loving it. I've connected with some of the young people, some of the young students, like the one here waving to me right there, and I say, I hope to be back with you. I'm working I'm working with the vice president that was there yesterday with us. There are 2 projects that I hope to be able to implement to really help the young people of Guyana be a part of this. One last thing. Sometime down the road, we are going to hear about this institution that I'm hoping. This is the first time I'm actually saying that publicly. Just like we have activities, we don't have Doctors Without Borders. I'm working with people around the world to create what we call Activists Without Borders. And this is the first time I'm saying this. Activists Without Borders. And that's why we need to train activists so that when we have revolutions, so what we call successful revolution, the one that happened in Egypt, like we all know, but got stolen, we cannot let that happen again. When we try to work toward we have a revolution is successful, we need to know what's going to happen plan B after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Djoken. Our next presenter is Mr. Eric M. Williams. Before I get started, can I just ask everyone to make sure you check your phones and make sure it's silent. Just want to continue to do that. Mr. Eric M. Phillips, Jr. is currently the chairperson of the Guyana Reparations Committee. Eric Phillips has served internationally as chairman of the board, CEO, MD, VP, COO, and program director and engineer in 7 countries. Mr. Phillips has a degree in chemical engineering from McMaster University in Ontario, Canada. He is also a 1990-91 White House Fellow. Mr. Phillips has been the managing director of AT&T Africa and the Middle East, vice president of AT&T Network Systems, the the Managing Director for AT&T Central Europe, Ukraine, and the Deputy Director for AT&T Globalization in Europe. He was also a Director of ASC Inc. in London, United Kingdom. Mr. Phillips spent 7 years in South Africa, where he was a Director for Africa Union Holdings, a Director for Combination Therapy Medical Solutions, and the COO for Safika Holdings. Mr. Phillips has won many awards, including the AT&T Senior VP Award in 1993, the Bell Labs Outstanding Service Award in 1990, and the Scientific Achievement Award for Apollo Technologies in 1982. He has been featured on the cover of Businessweek International and Black Engineering magazines. He was nominated for the United States Black Engineer of the Year Award for his work on FTS 2000. He was the head prefect of Queens College of Queens College, and the only person to win both the junior school and senior school prize twice. Please help me welcome Mr. Eric
Good morning, everyone. Special welcome to our guests from overseas. I'm supposed to speak to you about how do we get there through reparations, and I will try to do that. But I'd like to say that we are pioneers of our future and not prisoners of our past. Before I seek to provide a possible path to how do we get there, the fundamental question to be asked is, what are the goals and aspirations of people of African descent? Is it to be a well-respected, well-educated, prosperous people? Is it a quest for economic independence, cultural restoral, political independence, social renewal, and global influence? Is it to live in a democracy that has a core visionary founding principle that is conceptualized as a market of freedoms, collective ideas, inclusive and transparent institutions and community? Or is it that we desire to live in an all-inclusive, multiracial, multicultural, multireligious, plural democracy? There's a famous African proverb that states, if you want to know the end, look at the beginning. So to know how to get where we need to go, we have to look at the beginning. What it is that we need to be restored to? How do we get there from where we are today? Well, let's start with the beginning. The business of slavery and reparations. Slavery was a business and a transformative economic event of today's global economy. It transformed Europe from a feudal agrarian economy to an industrial and political superpower that platformed Europe's economic strength to what it is today. Slavery took Europe from the Dark Ages into a period of unprecedented GDP growth and created a foundation for Europe's economic, social, political, diplomatic, and cultural ascendancy. Slavery was the beginning of pure, uncontrolled capitalism and of rampant globalization. Slavery was a primary industry and primary business event of our times. It may still be the basis of today's globalization and outsourcing from west to east. In essence, slavery was poor business. It lacked morality, it lacked humanity, it embraced unimaginable exploitation, human destruction, millions of death, and simply was the greatest crime on earth. Slavery was the first nuclear bomb the world has ever experienced. Slavery annihilated Africa, African culture, African family structures, African institutions, African commerce, African growth, African history, African pride, and African economic development. Many Europeans have argued that slavery did not make Europe wealthy. This belies the facts and the reality of European growth and development. Slavery was a 400-year criminal economic activity that enriched Europe. If slavery was about business and economics, then deductive logic would inform us that in order to get where we need to go as people of African descent, we have to look at the business of reparations. The business of reparations must be business, nothing else. We hear it being defined in all sorts of terms. The business of reparations must be business. If people of African descent are to achieve the goals and aspirations discussed over the last few days of the summit. But what have we learned from the past? Europe is the powerhouse it is today because of reparations, because of slavery, and because of the Marshall Plan. Israel is the power it is today because of reparations. West Germany paid Israel a sum of 3 billion marks over 14 years. A great part of reparations money to Israel went into purchasing equipment and raw materials for companies that were owned by the government, the Jewish Agency, and the Histadrut labor union. Much of that money went into purchasing equipment for about 1,300 industrial plants. 2/3 of this money was given to 36 factories. At the same time, hundreds of plants, mostly private ones, received reparations. And so, Israel's economy was underpinned, and is still underpinned today by reparations. I'd like now to switch to the business of reparations in the local context, and that is the Guyana reparations story and how we see that story taking us to where we need to get. The Guyana Reparations Committee has a clear vision of what is needed to restore the people of African descent in Guyana, as well as how to get there. The committee strongly believes that a historic figure has to change the momentum of the dialogue and discussions about reparations. The committee believes that a great leader must take hold and must take a bold step that will be courageous and transformative. The committee believes President David Granger, like King David, has the opportunity to be that transformative servant leader the global reparation movement needs. The examples of Europe after World War II and Israel after the Holocaust are indeed informative and paradigm setting. President Granger has a unique opportunity to show the world Guyana can again play a leadership role in global affairs and in reparations. Like Kofi in the 1763 Berbice War, like Kwame in the 1823 Demerara Revolt, like Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow in 1917, the father of trade unionism in the Caribbean, like John G. and James, who wrote Stolen Legacy in 1958, like Eliphas Burnham in 1966, who got independence and who promoted the non-aligned movement and who promoted CARICOM, like Walter Rodney in 1973, who wrote How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, like Abram Van Sertima in 1978, who wrote They Came Before Columbus. President Granger can justly, morally, ethically, legally demand that his parliament pass an ancestral rights bill to provide 18% of Guyana to the people of African descent as reparatory justice for 200 years of slavery, the premature loss of 473,000 lives, and for crimes against humanity. President Granger, the people and Parliament of Guyana are all aware that Guyana has already created the legal precedent of reparatory justice for Amerindians through parliamentary passage of the Amerindian Act of 2006. This act gave 13.8% of Guyana to 70,000 Amerindians with a claim of lands that were taken away from 6,000 Amerindians who lived during Dutch and British Guyana. And during the period that over 600,000 Africans were enslaved in Guyana. The Parliament is well aware that the claim of Guyana Reparations Committee is simple, just, and historically correct. Slavery was and is a crime against humanity. And international law as well as morality dictates that there should be reparation. The government of Guyana has already set the precedent and granted financial reparations and land reparations through the Amerindian Act of 2006. Yet, Africans were here in Guyana before 3 of the 9 Amerindian tribes who received reparatory justice lands. The Makusis, the Wapishanis, and the Waiwais all came here 100 to 200 years after Africans arrived in Guyana. How can tribes who came to Guyana after Africans who died in the thousands to build Guyana, how can they receive lands when descendants of Africans in Guyana have not? By any definition, this is a breach of the fundamental human rights and constitutional rights of Africans in Guyana. This panel speaks to the topic, how do we get there? Well, in Guyana, with land justice, the people of African descent would use the 18% of Guyana to create a society and an economy that would be restorative, politically, economically, culturally, and psychologically. As mentioned before, slavery was the moral, social, religious, economic, health, political, and financial crisis of our times. Repartition of land and financial justice through an ancestral rights bill passed in Guyana would provide a solid platform for physical and economic renewal of people of African descent in Guyana. Our villages, which were bought during the greatest entrepreneurial activity in any post-slavery society, would underpin this reparation and economic restoral. The spiritual, cultural, psychological, and health issues that have been discussed over the last few days would be addressed by land justice. The Guyana Reparations Committee has already received a draft perpetual trust from one of Guyana's brightest sons. The main objective of this trust is to put the land we would receive and must receive so that it could continuously ameliorate the conditions of descendants of enslaved Africans in Guyana. The trust is designed to hold the lands, to invest these lands, and to distribute the proceeds of this investment in the form of grants, loans, and investments to create a conducive environment for African growth in Guyana. In essence, the relevant elements of the CARICOM Reparations Commission's 10-point plan would be addressed if land reparatory justice was granted in Guyana. The beneficiaries are the descendants of enslaved Africans, and beneficiaries will be qualified at birth and cannot be disqualified. Beyond this land justice, the Guyana Reparations Committee is already working with the African Business Roundtable to develop a national economic strategy for Africans in Guyana. Indeed, next week, as part of that process, the